Powermaxed Racing eSeries rolls into the Cathedral of Speed. The Autodromo Nazionale di Monza in Italy is the venue for rounds 7 and 8, of the Powermaxed Racing eSeries. We're approaching the halfway point of what has already been an ultra close, ultra exciting a minute championship, and still no clear idea really who the championship favourite may be. We've seen some truly astonishing racing as well over the course of the last few weeks. The good news is there are still plenty more races to go before we crown our first ever Powermaxed Racing eSeries champion. Thank you for joining us wherever you are around the world. Hope that you've been keeping up with all of the racing action throughout the first 3 events of the season, and we thank you for your continued support of this brand new championship, which really has caught a lot of people's attention. It pits top-level sim racers against real-life professional drivers. So far, the pros have not had it easy at all. In fact, they've yet to win a race outright, so maybe tonight be the chance to see some of the more familiar names appearing towards the sharp end of the field. Well, my name is Andy McKeown, up here in the commentary box, joined as ever by Dan Blake to talk you through all of the action. Dan, welcome. Good evening. It's been a thrilling season so far, and after the sort of slipstreaming battles that we enjoyed at Silverstone a week ago, I think that is really a taste of what we've got to come tonight. We're in for another 2 really close contests.
Good evening, Andy. Good evening, viewers. Exactly the same thoughts as you, Andy. This track, I think, will have even more slipstream than what we saw last week at Silverstone National. As you say, Monza, the Cathedral of Speed. There are a lot of straights as well, and even the corners are very fast. You've got a couple of chicanes in there as well, which slow things down. But on the whole, it's probably one of the fastest tracks in terms of average speed, if not the fastest, that we'll visit all season. So the slipstream, I think, will have an even bigger effect than ever, especially in qualifying.
Absolutely. That qualifying session coming your way in about 7 minutes time or so before 2 races later on in the evening. Here's a reminder, though, of where we are in the grand scheme of things. This, the 4th of 10 race nights in the Powermaxed Racing eSeries. We already have visited some of Great Britain's best. The Donington Park circuit played host to our opening rounds. We were at Brands Hatch the week after that. And a week ago, the national circuit at the home of British Motorsport, Silverstone, where we briefly then bid farewell to the UK circuits to head here to Monza for rounds 7 and 8 before heading back to the UK for Alton Park and Snetterton over the next couple of weeks. Then another 2, one European and 1 American adventure. We head to the circuit to Catalunya in Spain for rounds 13 and 14, then Lime Rock Park in America the week after that, before the final 2 race nights of the season at arguably the 2 most famous circuits in the UK, the international circuit at Silverstone, and then the magnificent Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit will play host to the championship decider. The format for the night, there will be a practice session, which the drivers are taking part in now, qualifying of 15 minutes, which will get underway in just over 5 minutes' time, and then 2 20-minute races, the second of which has that top 10 grid reversal. As exciting as the opening races of the night tend to be, those second races, anything, are even better. Last time out, we were, as I said, at Silverstone, and the championship battle that's kind of starting to develop here between Kieran Harris and Nicole Foggy. We were waiting to see whether or not Silverstone might mix things up a bit. Came out of the Silverstone weekend just exactly where they were going in, because they both got themselves a race win. Kieran Harrison won the first race of the night with Ollie Peacock second and Johnny Brandon rounding out the overall podium, whilst in the pro class, remember there's a separate class for the pro drivers within the race itself, Josh Malin, who is very much turning into the man to beat in the pro class, he took another class victory in race 1 with Jan Ehrlichet second and James Collado getting on the podium in third. In race number 2, Nicole Foggy fought straight back after Kieran Harrison's race 1 victory. Nicole knew that he had to try and get onto the top step of the podium again in race 2, which he did. Josh Malin was able to get on the overall podium, though, and that was a really incredible result, that from Josh. Second place, I know that meant an awful lot to him. Then Maxime Ramstein in third position overall. Of course, Malin's P2 meant that he won the pro class again. Bobby Thompson was second, and Dave Newsham was in third. 3 different teams represented on the podium. What does that mean then for the championship battle? Well, it really couldn't be an awful lot closer. Kieran Harrison arrives here at Monza on 91 points, just 3 points clear of Nicole Foggy. Those two starting to distance themselves slightly from the early favourite, Matthew Turnbull. But Matthew did not have a brilliant pair of races at Silverstone. He had some contact in race number 1, which knocked him out of the points, or at least the big scoring points, and he will be looking to try and bounce back today if he can. 21 points off the lead and only 10 points ahead of fourth place man Maxime Ramstein, Ross McFarlane fifth. The top pro driver in the overall standings is, perhaps unsurprisingly, the pro class leader Josh Malin, and sits 8th in the overall points, arriving here at the 4th meeting of the season. Well, some brilliant racing, as I said. The championship really is very, very finely poised. One driver that we haven't been able to mention so far, as much as we'd like, maybe, at least as far as getting podium results, been Tom Onslow Cole. He's one of the very well-known pro drivers that we've got racing with us in the Power Max Racing eSeries. Tom may not have had an overall podium, but he certainly has caught our eye with some of the that we've seen him involved in out on track. And I'm delighted to say that Tom joins us in the commentary box now. Tom, I hope we're not disturbing your practice session, first of all. How are things going so far tonight?
Steady, but this has not been unusual so far. I've been having the best time, but this is ultra competitive.
It is, but then that's kind of part of the appeal, isn't it, really? Because you guys don't want to be putting yourself up against people you know you can beat, and my word, you can't beat these people easily, can you?
No, absolutely not. I've been having some of the most fun battles, some incredible moves, and really cool racing. It's just been not at the right end of the grid, but I am trying to work on getting there. But it's it's a slightly different discipline, and it's taken some adjustment.
We here in the UK know you predominantly, I suppose, for your touring car racing history, but it's fair to say actually that in more recent times your career has definitely taken on more of a GT racing flavour. So have you found it difficult at all to transition back into what is a kind of unique form of cut and thrust racing?
Not at all. I guess you don't forget these things, and I think GT racing probably has a bit of a stigma around it, where you think it's not as a cut and thrust and as competitive. But wow, when the manufacturers are involved and you're racing globally, the competition level in GT racing is extremely high. And in the sprint races, the battles are the same. It's just all happening a bit quicker. Jumping back into front wheel drive has been really fun. It's nice to be able to get it really out of shape and know that you can get it back, and it's the same with the battling. I guess you can afford to push that little bit more because you've got that safety net of driving out of it.
Well, you've certainly been pushing, and as you've alluded to, you've been involved in some terrific scraps all season long. I don't think you're going to have a quiet night tonight either, are you? Because this circuit, perhaps even more so than Silverstone a week ago, is going to really generate close racing. Toe is going to be massive as well, so it could be a bit of a free-for-all, couldn't it?
I think tonight is going to be really, really close. I'm just seeing now in the practice session that the toe is worth so much time. So I think even if you do pass somebody, it's going to be very hard to get away with the toe, and I'm sure we're going to end up in large packs scrapping for that position at the front.
Well, best of luck. Hopefully we will get to talk to you on some point this season, but it's been an absolute joy watching it out on track, and we're really happy to hear that you're enjoying it too.
Yeah, thank you very much.
There you go then, Tom Onslow Cole, who will get back to his practice session, which in fact is nearly over now because it is almost time to go qualifying. We're just a couple of seconds away from the practice session being ended. The check flies now. For what it's worth, in the practice session was Jack Sedgwick with a 2 minutes 3.3, so that's an interesting name to see at the top of the tides, with Matthew Turnbull second, Kieran Harrison third, and Nicole Foggy fourth. They're the top three in the championship, but not in that order. It's Harrison, remember, that has the advantage in the points arriving here at Monza. So qualifying then getting underway now, and the drivers have 15 minutes in which to try and set themselves a lap time good enough for the pole position. But it is a long circuit here at Monza, the longest track that we have raced on so far. In fact, I think I'm right in saying the longest circuit possibly that we will race on all season long, 3.6 miles, the full Grand Prix layout here at Monza. So it'll take them a while to get their tyres up to temperature and really start setting the good lap tyres, which Blake gives us a chance to reflect a little bit more on what we've seen so far, because I think first 6 races, this is a good point now to just take a step back and think, like, who are the favourites? What have we learnt so far? And it is definitely those 3 that I've mentioned a couple of times already tonight, isn't it? That have kind of separated themselves at the top of the points, Kieran, Nicole and Matthew. It's still early days in the championship, so what do you think? Is it a 3-horse race already, or is there anyone else that you see lurking, ready to join in the championship battle as we move through the season?
It's already starting to widen out quite a bit. The gap between Kieran Harrison in the championship lead and Ross McFarlane, who is 5th in the championship, is already nearly 40 points. But it just takes one of those drivers to have a bad race or get involved in an accident, and someone a bit further down to get a victory, and then that's automatically a big portion of that will car rolling over there. That's a big part of the championship lead, or the sort of gap over the driver gone. So it's just these front drivers need to be doing it consistently, as we said, all season, because if they slip up, there's plenty of people hungry to capitalise on the mistakes.
One thing I found fascinating, Dan, is looking at the average finishes and the average starting positions for the various drivers, and they have been wide open. We've had 4 different winners from 6 races. We've had lots of different drivers on the podiums. It's remarkable just how equal Kieran Harrison and Nicole Foggy have been. They both have 2 wins. Both have an average starting position of 6th. They both have an average finishing position of 4th. The only thing separating them have been these bonus points. Remember, you get bonus points for fastest lap. You get bonus points for leading a lap in the race as well. And Kieran Harrison has scored 4 bonus points to Nicole's 2. That's where the 3-point advantage essentially comes from. But when you've got 2 drivers that are that inseparable, it's take a bit of bad luck for one of them to really allow the other to steal a march.
Nicole seems to have mastered the race too. Both of his victories have been in race 2. So on the reverse grid races, it seems that Nicole just has that little bit of an edge over Kieran, but Kieran's always seems to be there or thereabouts. So what happens here at Monza, it's to say, it's both races. It's interesting to see the dynamic, and if it will continue where Foggy has his better race in race 2, if one of these drivers can get consistent podium finishes in both races, it's going to mean that the other driver has to really up it to another level, and it really will be intriguing to see if they can just up that to a further level and up to the next gear as such.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out, I think, that whilst they've both had wins and they both had podiums, they don't often seem to get the podiums in the same race as each other. One of them seems to do quite well out of the first race of the night, and then maybe has a bit of a disaster in race number 2. We kind of saw that from Matthew Turnbull, didn't we, last time as well? He had that contact in race 1 when he was in a promising position, and he really will definitely be looking to bring himself back into the equation once more, hopefully with a race win, or maybe even 2, here tonight at Monza. Well, following some of the cars as they head out onto their early laps in the session, Jan Ehrlichia there in the purple and white Zerkotech car, the relation of British and World Touring Car Champion Ivan Muller is Jan Ehrlichia. Either a nephew or a cousin. We were debating that before we went on air, but certainly has racing in his blood. And Jan Ehrlichia running reasonably well so far this season. He sits 10th place in the Pro Championship, but when you consider he didn't score any points in the first 2 races at Langton Park, he's actually done quite well to score pretty nicely out of the last few races. A couple of new names with us as well tonight, aren't there, Dan? And within the Pro category, a couple of names that certainly UK-based touring car fans who are tuning in tonight will be pretty familiar with.
Michael Creese making his debut as well. We saw him, he's appeared in the British Touring Car Championship, and he's been very excited to get involved in the Power Max race in the eSeries. So it's great to see that someone of Michael's stature having that sort of enthusiasm, and it sounds like he's been buzzing all week to get involved in this, and we're hoping we'll be able to get a word with him tonight as well, as you see him on screen now in the Adrian Flux car. We're hoping we'll be able to get him on to have an interview. Also, there's been an addition as well, Sean Hollenby, the boss of AMD. We saw him racing the British touring cars in the VW Golf in the early part of, I think, about 2010 times. A sort of about 10, 11 years ago, we saw Sean Hollenby out in the British Touring Car Championship. He's now the team manager of AMD. He's racing. So that's the changes as far as our pro drivers. Do have a change for the sim races as well for year one racing. Chris Daines has retired from sim racing due to personal reasons, and he's going to be replaced in the championship by Ashley Beard. Ashley, the very fast driver, he'll be racing in number 59, so that'd be one to watch out for. As we see here, he's working with his teammate Mark Fletcher. With it being a qualifying session where they're all out together, the slipstream is going to be so important, and having drivers to work with could be the difference between finishing pole or finishing 15th.
Yeah, definitely, and those team tactics will come into play, no doubt, over the course of the session. Already, though, we're starting to see some times coming in. Kieran Harrison fastest right now in the session on 2 minutes 0.85, just over a tenth of a second quicker, and Matthew Turnbull and David Baker is in third place, Jason Cooper fourth, and Mark Fletcher fifth. So one of the championship big hitters that hasn't yet set a really good time is Nicole Foggy, who is down in 10th place right now, but I'm sure Nicole will improve very shortly. We're following Kieran Harrison through the Ascari chicane down the back straight towards the Emas Parabolica, the final 180-degree right-hander that brings them onto the pit straight here at Monza. And Kieran Harrison then points leader by just 3 championship points. Every position is going to be crucial from now until the end of the season, really, for Kieran and Nicole and Matthew, as they all try to outfox each other. And there's always the threat that as they race each other, maybe they get a bit preoccupied and forget about some of the drivers that have shown good pace this season, but maybe not on such a consistent level. And those are the drivers looking to try and sneak back into the championship conversation. Matthew Turnbull coming through, and he sets the fastest time now, 2 minutes 0.76, so he pips Kieran Harrison, who did not improve last time around, and so Matthew Turnbull onto the pole position. Desperately unlucky was Matthew at Silverstone last time out. Dan, I think it's fair to say he would have had a much better points haul had it not been for that very unfortunate bit of contact in the first race. Given the fact that he did have that disappointment, he's actually doing quite well to still be in touch with the top 2 in the points.
Matthew, as you say, had some technical difficulties, and we're hoping he's got them solved for tonight. It was a very unfortunate incident when netcode was involved. The card disappeared, and then it appeared just at the wrong time, and the contact happened. There was no fault for that. It was just an unfortunate technical issue, but it has cost Turnbull extremely in terms of the points, and he'll be looking to fight back with vengeance in this one. As Nicole Foggy now goes pole with a 2 minutes, 0.538.
Yeah, that's nearly a quarter of a second quicker than Turnbull. So Nicole Foggy working with a teammate. That's what I wanted to see. Graham Sessford operating the cameras for us once again. Read my mind. And the number 44 car benefiting there most definitely from a tow from his
Johnny
teammate.
Brandon, that would be, the XPR drivers.
Absolutely. So Johnny, you saw, dragged Nicole down the pit straight and then pulled out of the way. So he's kind of sacrificed his next lap as well so that Nicole could have a clean, fast run onto this lap. Johnny's only 12th at the moment. So this takes some real trust in your teammates, doesn't it? That if you help them now, will reciprocate later on in the session. Because if they don't, then they can well and truly stitch you up.
Especially as it's worth noting, this isn't actually a team's championship. It's all about the drivers as well. So they're it's not like some racing championships where there's a mutual benefit for the team. It is purely about the individual drivers. So in that circumstance as well, that trust is sort of even more magnified.
Yes, well, it's clearly there because they're working well together, and there are other people trying to get in on the act as well, including Dan Harper there, who's right behind them. Meanwhile, Nicole Foggy is on pole position no longer because Jack Sedgwick, who was quick in practice, remember, has just leapt onto provisional pole position at 2 minutes 0.48. Jack Sedgwick is 5/100ths of a second quicker than Nicole Foggy. So Sedgwick now to the pole. Matthew Turnbull is down to 4th place now because Jason Cooper has just jumped into 3rd. So lots of improvements coming at the moment as we move into the second half of the qualifying session now. And already we're seeing exactly what we thought we would. People who we've not been talking about as championship contenders so far are starting to get themselves amongst the regular front runners. They're learning as the season goes on. And we always expected this, didn't we, Dan? We always expected there to be some drivers that started off a bit hotter than others. Now I'm really interested to see, as we get through these next 3 or 4 or 5 race nights, who are the new drivers that are learning on the go and getting fast enough now, maybe, to compete for race victories.
That's exactly the point. The iRacing Services only actually had the Audi TCR car for an iRacing season, which is 3 months. So the car is still relatively new for everybody as well. And some of the drivers may not have even touched the TCR until sort of the qualifying process for the Power Max Racing eSeries. So they're getting more experience behind the wheel of the car. And it's great to see that sort of different people. There's names in the top 10, sort of David Baker also, Dave Newsham up to 8th as well. So a great time there by Dave Newsham, and he is currently the leading pro runner.
Yeah, if this was the reversed grid that we were deciding here, and it was 10th place that would be on pole position, we'd have a very interesting front couple of rows, because Jan Ehrlicher is 10th at the moment, Bobby Thompson is 9th, and Dave Newsham is 8th. So 3 of our very distinguished pro drivers all running just at the back end of the top 10 in this qualifying session. But of course, if they finish in those sort of positions in race 1, that could get them up to the front in race number 2. Speaking of pro drivers at the front, though, Michael Epps, out of the blue, has just set the 3rd fastest lap time, and he's only 0.13 off pole position, except he isn't anymore because 2 people improve. Matthew Turnbull goes 2nd, Kieran Harrison goes to the pole position, and just like that, it's all changed around again. Harrison on pole now with a 2 minute 0.14. That's a quarter of a second clear of Matthew Turnbull's 2nd. Sedgwick, who was on pole 30 seconds ago, is down to 3rd. Nicole Foggy down to 4th. Michael Epps now down to 5th, but that is still a really impressive effort, that, from Michael, who we've spoken to a couple of times, haven't we, Dan? And he's always been saying that he is dear. That's Michael Crease there making contact with the number 90 car of Josh Malin. That will go down not particularly well. But yeah, Mike Epps has been telling us, hasn't he, Dan, that he has been struggling for just outright pace so far this season. Struggling today, and whether or not that was because of a slipstream is almost irrelevant. He's still driving the car well, and it's really nice to see him in the top 5.
Yeah, very welcome return for Mike, who missed last week due to his internet issues he's been having. So looks like they've been solved, and he's on the pace again. To say he's now, in fact, Daniel Harper goes 4th place as well. So Daniel Harper, another one of the pro drivers who, I think Daniel Harper won the first 4 rounds of the Pro Championship. So he's now up into 4th place ahead of Nicole Foggy. And that's the last thing that Foggy's going to want with Harrison on pole position, is that he's got pro drivers now getting in the mix as well. And I think this is really the first qualifying session where we've seen a number of these pro drivers getting into the top 10 and amongst the mix of the sim races.
Dan Harper won the first 3 rounds of the championship within the pro category, so he scored 60 points within the first 3 races of the season. Next 3 races yielded just 4 points. So he has had a disastrous last couple of rounds, really, after a really dominant start to the season. So Dan, who was on the pace at Silverstone, but unfortunately was in the wrong place at the wrong time on a couple of occasions, got caught up in other people's accidents and didn't score, or only managed to score 4 points in class throughout the entirety of those 2 races. And that meant that arriving here at Monza, he had dropped down to 4th in the Pro Championship and was 40 points off the championship leader Josh Malin. So yeah, Dan definitely with a point to prove, I think, tonight, as he tries to get himself back into the Pro Championship battle. Kieran Harrison has still got pole position then with a 2 minute 8.4. 12 100ths clear of Jack Sedgwick, who's back into 2nd now. There's Sedgwick improving again on his previous lap and now heads for the pit lane. We're into the final couple of minutes of the session. The drivers that feel that they've got the most out of the car now will maybe be calling it a day, but can anybody beat Kieran Harrison? With Jack Sedgwick in the pits now, I guess this falls to people like Turnbull and Harper and Nicole Foggy trying it up there and take the pole away.
Harrison just actually had a contact going through Prima Variante, which caused damage to his car and also invalidated his lap time. So I don't think he'll get round for another lap either. So, and he's back into the pits. So that's the end of Kieran Harrison's session, and quite a few drivers, as Johnny Brandon now goes into 4th with a 2 minute 0.479. So Nicole Foggy has repaid the favour back to Johnny Brandon, and Johnny Brandon slots himself onto the 2nd row and is pushed Nicole Foggy back into 6th place. But at the moment, our top 5 are Kieran Harrison, Jack Sedgwick, is Turnbull in 3rd, Brandon 4th, and Harper in 5th, with Nicole Foggy 6th, and just 4 tenths separating his drivers.
Yeah, so Brandon came out of that better than Foggy, really, because he's ended up 4th and Nicole is 6th. So that little team plan has not really worked out quite as well for Nicole, who is the higher of the 2 in the championship. And as Dan said, there is no obligation whatsoever for drivers who are running the same liveries to work together as an official team. Thompson we're following now. He was in the top 10 a couple of minutes ago, along with Dave Newsham and Jan Ehrlichie. They are now 16th, 17th, and 18th. Newsham, Thompson, and Ehrlichie in that order. So they've slipped down quite dramatically in the last minute or so. Quite a few drivers, though, have headed for the pit lane. Dan Harper in 5th is the highest placed driver still going. Running with Nicole Foggy as well. They're nose to tail still, those two. So maybe we'll see a late improvement from one or both of them. Max Coates here makes his way out of the second Lesmo, down the hill towards the Ascari chicane. Max is down in 30th at the moment, really struggling for pace, it would seem. Quite a few drivers as well have not set a time. George Bland, Michael Crease, Sean Hollenby and Ricky Collard all yet to set a time in the session. So they, at the moment, will be starting from the back of the grid.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that Max is so far off the pace. I just think he's by far. Ricky Collard puts the time in now, but only good enough for 30th place. And it just shows that if you don't have a slipstream or anyone to work with, that it really can cost you, because Max Coates 5 seconds off the pace. I don't think that's truly just down to slipstream. I think maybe he's been having some other issues during this qualifying session, but it's going to be turn 1 at Monza. Always is. It can be a bit of an event in terms of the braking zone. So what happens at turn 1 could be quite paramount in the race, because all it takes is a bit of contact and you get spun around in the field, and that could be your race ruined.
I'm far from a sim racing expert myself, but I have taken part in a few online lobby races at Monza, and I know how stressful it can be to lead a field of maybe 8 or 9 cars into that first corner, because if one of them misjudges the braking behind you, there's absolutely nothing you can do to avoid being rear-ended and taken out of the race altogether. Well, we are expecting a grid of about 35 drivers heading into that first turn in a moment or so. So it could be a very busy run through the first sequence of corners. Newsham then slowing down as he goes down the back straight. David Baker, we're following now, in fact, I think he is the last driver yet to set a lap time. And he turns through the Parabolica in the number 16 Fuchs liveried car. In 16th place at the moment is Dave Newsham. He will complete this final lap, though, after which we should be able to run you through the grid for our opening race of the night. And in fact, he bails for the pit lane, so no improvement for David Baker. One is still out on track, so too Dave Newsham, kind of. There's Lee Horn. Lee Horn is languishing down the order somewhat in 25th place right now, but the Next Gen Racing car going to pull to the side of the road. Next Gen, who are the people responsible for the championship, really. They take care of all of the technical side of the Powermax Racing eSeries, arranging all of the races. They work with the racing to put it all together. They've done a lot of hard work behind the scenes, so thank you to Lee and Jamie and everyone at Next Gen for helping us to put together what has been a remarkable spectacle so far. Qualifying then is almost over, about 15 seconds left on the clock until we can officially give you the grid, but Kieran Harrison is going to be the man on pole position, and that is just where the championship leader wanted to find himself, especially since he's got 5 cars separating himself and Nicole Foggy, who is only 3 points behind him in the championship. One of those cars, though, is Matthew Turnbull, right in between them, so top 3 in the championship are all in the top 5 on the grid. Here then is the grid for the first race. It is Kieran Harrison and Jack Sedgwick, row number 1, Matthew Turnbull and Johnny Brandon, row 2, then Dan Harper and Nicole Foggy on the 3rd row, Ollie Peacock and Michael Epps in the 4th row together, ahead of Mark Fletcher and David Baker. Then just outside the top 10, Jason Cooper and Maxime Ramstein. Thought we might have seen more from Maxime. He was one of the pace setters at Silverstone a week ago. They are just ahead of Jack McIntyre and Lewis Goodway on the 7th row, and Ashley Beard and Dave Newsham on the 8th. The 9 for Bobby Thompson and Jan Ehrlichie, 10th row for Ty Keveth and Lane O'Connor to round out the top 20, and then Tom Onslow Cole, who's right in the thick of the field, right where I'm sure he'd like to be, honestly. He'll enjoy lots of good racing from down in 21st on the grid. You've got Jamie Dory alongside him. Then Chris Knox and Josh Malin, 2 drivers again that I thought would be further towards the sharp end than that. They're just ahead of Lee Horn and Chris Slater. Then Marlon Menden, Freddie Hewitt, Seb Perez and Ricky Collard round out the top 30. So Collard got a lap in, but it was only good enough for 30th place. Max Coates, Ollie Wayne, Sean Hollenby, Michael Crease and George Bland will round out the field. So we have the stage set then for our first race of the night. Kieran Harrison and Jack Sedgwick will share the front row of the grid. Jack Sedgwick, remember, is only 9th in the championship. His average finish is 10th place so far this season. So if ever there was a driver that could do with a race win, it is the man starting on the outside of the front row of the grid. Whether or not he will be able to That we shall find out, I suppose, in the next minute or so. We are waiting still for the last couple of cars line up on the grid, but Dan, this is going to be a really, really interesting race, isn't it?
I'm looking forward to it immensely. Another driver who we saw better of earlier in the year, we may be a factor, is David Baker as well. He had a bit of a rough time at Silverstone, but Brandon Donington, David Baker was constantly in the top 5 as well. So maybe another name for us to look out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the lights then are on. Dan, why don't you take us through the start?
Here we go, the lights are out, and there's a car missing from 7th on the grid. It didn't appear, but it is Harrison who has got the lead at the moment, and Turnbull up into 2nd place. So Turnbull has taken the jump there past Jack Sedgwick, and there's a car off in the barrier as well, mid-pack, and there's a little bit of carnage further back, but at the front, it is Harrison leading from Turnbull, and it looks like there's been some more contact further back, but the leaders are going through at the moment as we see them all. There's one going across the grass there as well on the exit of turn 1, but the majority of the field seem to have got through in one piece, and it's Kieran Harrison who has the lead. We're on board with Harrison now as he goes up towards the second Varianta for the first time, and you'll see them take a lot of curve. There we go. These TCR cars can get some very good angles there, and there's been a contact there further back, and it's just getting all stacked up. But on the whole, it looks like everyone has got through okay. That's Ashley Beard there as well. He is racing in a pack which involves Bobby Thompson, Josh Malin, Lewis Goodway, and Lane O'Connor. So that's sort of towards the bottom end of your top 20, but at the second Lesmo, it is Kieran Harrison who has the lead, and Turnbull not far behind him in 2nd, and they are trying to pull away from Jack Sedgwick in 3rd, but of course, with it being Monza in the slipstream, I think that's going to be very hard.
Indeed it is. Well, Dan, I'm going through a couple of technical issues at the moment, so I was hanging on your every word there, trying to figure out what was going on at the start of the race, because I didn't actually see it myself, but it sounds like Kieran Harrison with the race lead. Now his job is to try and escape out in front here, especially given the fact that Nicole Foggy is already making progress up those 2 places into 4th place now. Nicole Foggy. Kieran Harrison really wants to try and distance his championship rivals. That is going to be a lot easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Oh, nearly 3 wide going into the Parabolica there. That's Mark Fletcher involved with Dan Harper and Johnny Brandon. And as you say, Nicole Foggy's done a fantastic job to get up into 4th place. And this is going to be the opportunity that Turnbull needs, as Dan Harper looks like he's going towards the pits. He may have jumped the start. So Dan Harper, one of the pro drivers who say, one of the first 3 races for that pro class, he is now in the pit lane. There's a few cars as well that have had accident damage and are in the pits as well. There's 3 or 4 of them in there, but the desperately bad times for Dan Harper, who finds himself now into the pits to take a penalty, it looks like. But Johnny Brandon has got up into 5th place past Mark Fletcher. So the XVR cars are currently at 4th and 5th. And I believe our director, Graham Sesswood, has a replay for us. Not able to see the replay, but it's of the accident that we saw further down in the pack, and it involved Lee Horn, that looks like in the number 28 car. So as you say, one of the organisers for Next Gen Racing, they help us with our admin and sort of everything to help us go racing. And it's unfortunately, as we see, Chris Knox as well, who's had a moment, it looks like in the 888 car as well. So Chris Knox, another one who I've just seen on the screen, who had the issue as well on the first lap. So it's Chris Knox actually went across the track, and Lee Horn is avoiding across the grass, and it's like they have a next gen car involved as well. So the 2 next gen cars have actually gone into each other, and that is one of the big adages of motorsport. You do not want to collect your teammate, but in this instance, I think there's nothing they could do. It's sort of things going on all down the field as we look on board with Seb Perez, who returns after missing Silverstone last week, and straight into the side of Chris Knox. And when you got packs like that, it's unsighted, as in that instance, you just didn't see it in time. And that was a very big accident that we see there. But we're now on board with our race leader, Kieran Harrison, and the top 3 are starting to pull away as they go through the Parabolica for the second time. It's Kieran Harrison, Jack Sedgwick, and Nicole Foggy. Between them, they have pulled nearly a second and a half to the 2 cars chasing behind, who are Johnny Brandon in 4th place, but he's under a lot of pressure from Year 1 Racing's Mark Fletcher. Mark is another driver who is pretty new to the Audi TCR car. He's one who's been learning as it's going along, and he's showing that he's really getting to grips with this car. He's fighting with Johnny Brandon, who is a very established and quick touring car racer in iRacing, as are all of these drivers. Brandon tries to brake a little bit later though, but Fletcher will try and get the cutback, but at the moment it is the XVR car leading the Year 1 car in 4th and 5th. But at the front, the top 3 are starting to pull away, and if Fletcher and Brandon keep battling, they are going to lose touch of those top 3.
Yes, which was kind of what we saw at Silverstone, wasn't it? There was an almighty battle for 4th place that really kept the leaders, or allowed the leaders, to pull out a bit of a gap over the rest. Delighted to say I can see what's going on again now, because it sounds like I've been missing some brilliant racing already. Mark Fletcher there diving up the inside for 4th position over the curbs, trying his best to get away from Johnny Brandon right behind him. These two drivers really impressing me here. This is by far the best we've seen from either of them so far. Mark Fletcher and Johnny Brandon are not troubling the top 10 in the points. Fletcher is 14th coming into tonight's racing, and Johnny Brandon is even further back. I can't even see him inside the top 20. So these are two drivers desperately in need of a good result. So too, though, the 3 at the front. And Nicole Foggy with the fastest lap of the race last time around, a 2-minute 1.03. I would say that Nicole's the fastest here because he's not only been able to work his way from 6th on the grid to 3rd, he pulled away from the group behind and he's catching the 2 in front. I know the slipstream plays a part in that, but he looks quicker than anybody else.
Nicole Foggy is a very quick driver, and as we see there, side by side for the lead between Jack Sedgwick and Kieran Harrison. Also worth noting, Matthew Turnbull has had an issue which we haven't seen. He's down in 11th place, so the driver third in the championship, he couldn't really afford to lose many more points following the dramas he had at Silverstone. Looks like found some drama. He's in 11th place, but this battle for the lead is going to be truly exciting as they get down towards the first corner, because Nicole Foggy does not want to stay behind much longer. He's pulling for the outside, and he thinks he may be able to get past them both.
The straights are long enough here that you can overtake, obviously, not just one, but 2 cars in a straight line if you get a good enough slipstream. He tries to go around the outside of both of them, but Jack Sedgwick is having none of it. Turns into the chicane just in front. They leave each other just about enough room. A bit close on the exit of the corner there, but that means that Sedgwick will just about get the better run off the turn, and Nicole Foggy goes from 3rd to 1st, back to 3rd again, because Kieran Harrison this time has the tow. When you get cars side by side like this, Dan, it's actually the car in front of them that can play a part in deciding who goes through. If they give the slipstream to one car and not the other, that can actually have an effect on the overtake happening behind them.
It's a massive advantage to have that slipstream, and as you say, it's sort of the leader who controls. If there's one driver that he thinks he has a better chance of fighting than the other, then he can sort of manipulate that himself. But while they've all been fighting, Mark Fletcher got the gap now down to under a second as we look towards another battle further down. This is just inside our top 20, involving Tom Wansley, Cole, Marlon Menden, Ricky Card and Chris Knox. The pros are getting together, and it looks like they're having a right ball.
Ricky's gained 9 positions. This has been a good drive for the number 21 car, who's caught his works teammate, Marlon Menden, right in front. You make the point they're fighting over 20th position right now. Triple Eight is Chris Knox, another that I said would move forward, and speaking, he's picked up 1 spot, started 23rd, he's now 22nd, but he is right on the tail of that group of cars in front. This is what we're going to see a lot of this evening, I think. Little pockets of activity, groups of 5 or 6 cars all running similar pace, and really all the drivers within those groups just want to get to the front of that group and then try and catch the next one, but that is not going to be easy to do. On board with Knox then, out of Ascari, they all get a pretty equal exit from the chicane, so let's see what sort of slipstream effect there is. Tom Onslow Cole is the one leading the Crocodile, which is heaving its way down the back straight as they try and break the tow, and actually Chris Knox there, despite getting a good exit from the chicane, not able to close on the cars in front. He'll therefore be glad to see that they're starting to mix it up side by side now between Menden and Collard. Collard on the move here, Dan.
Collard, one on the move, you say, he's made up 9 places, a little bit of a door bang there with Menden, and Chris Knox. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have a bit of damage. You saw him involved in that start line incident. He took quite a hard hit, so it wouldn't surprise me if Chris Knox's car maybe wasn't at its best. But this battle between Onslow Cole, Collard, Knox and Menden, one of the true highlights of the race at the moment, is Knox tries to go past Menden on the outside, not quite able to do it, and Menden blocks the cutback on the exit.
Of course, they're all trying to get past Tom Onslow Cole, who always does seem to find our cameras, doesn't he? It is a particularly good-looking car, that Miltech Sport Audi, but he seems to be placing it right in the thick of some of the closest battling, race in, race out. He's got no defence here for Ricky Collard, who goes up the inside of Tom Onslow Cole. Collard passes Onslow Cole. I've heard that somewhere before, but this is Ricky Collard, son of multiple BTCC race winner Rob, who is at the wheel of this works car, and he is working his way nicely up the order. That puts him now into 19th position. Top 10 would be the target, I guess, to try and get that reverse grid pole position. But Danny's got this big gap now, 4.3 seconds before he catches the next group. I'll be watching his lap times with interest to see if he can do it. But now that he doesn't have a slipstream, is he going to find that actually that car is not quite as quick as it has been when he was in the pack?
I think it's going to require the pro drivers to work together and just to try and catch up. But at the front, we've got a massive battle here between the top 5, and Mark Fletcher and Johnny Brandon have caught up to our trio of drivers at the front: Jack Cedric, Kieran Harrison and Nicole Foggy. And it's actually Jack Cedric who now has the lead. So Cedric leads with Harrison and Foggy running on the podium, but Mark Fletcher and Johnny Brandon stalking their every move.
Yeah, they're right with them, aren't they? And they've now pulled 2.6 seconds over David Baker in 6th. So I think unless there's a real mix-up now amongst the top 5, it's likely to be these 5 drivers that will contest the race victory. We're about halfway through the race now. And positions are going to keep on changing, I think, almost by the corner. Nicole Foggy and Jack Cedric are side by side into the chicane. There is Foggy, and there's been a contact this time, giving each other plenty of room up until this point. But at what stage do you think that level of respect might just start to slip away a bit? Because as we work into the second half of the race, suddenly each overtake could be the one that makes the difference for the race win.
I think it's still a little bit too early as we see Mark Fletcher. This is a fantastic camera angle we're seeing. Mark Fletcher having to lift out the throttle there as they go into the secondary variante, and that's got Johnny Brandon down the inside. So very opportunistic move there from Johnny Brandon, and it just shows that at this part of the race you still need to be, you can't be all out attack because you still have got, you're halfway through the race, and it's not a time really that you want to be putting yourself in danger. But what they're doing is, as we said earlier, this fighting is allowing the likes of David Baker and Michael Epps to catch up, and if Michael Epps gets a sniff of this, I fancy his chances for at least a podium.
Jason Cooper as well, and don't forget Matthew Turnbull, who's dropped down to 10th place, but Matthew Turnbull is a championship contender, and he is on the back of that next pack of 5 cars that is catching the race leaders. They've taken a second out of the leaders already this lap, and they continue to close. We're on board with Matthew Turnbull now. This is 10th place, but off in the distance, look, there are the leaders. So actually, if they keep on at this rate, we could have a 10-car fight for the lead, and then it's only another second back to the next little gaggle of cars. So really, it's true NASCAR style racing, this, and this again is kind of what we touched on at Silverstone a week ago, but we're seeing it really exaggerated here at Monza with these super long straights and plenty of places to take your run if you get it. It's a nice wide track, there are lots of overtaking opportunities, and so rather than just following each other around in a long line all race long, they're really able to mix it up. On board then with Foggy, side by side with Sedgwick down the pit straight, but the top 3 are covered by 7/100ths of a second according to my timing screen, which means that Kieran Harrison must be around here somewhere. Foggy is on the inside. Oh good, there's a car coming out of the pit lane in front of them. That's just what they wanted to see.
Contact.
Foggy.
Harrison round.
Oh, okay, well, oh yes, there we go. He's gone around. He's gone into the chicane. So sorry, I wasn't seeing that, but around he's gone, and back team Ramstein makes contact as well. Oh dear, that was Ramstein and Cooper, I think, making contact. And Ramstein backing through the gravel trap. He bounces back on, but back team Ramstein out of the top 10. Here's what happened, Dan.
So it looks like Harrison has made contact with Mark Fletcher. It looks like they sort of just met in the middle there, and we were just saying earlier about what can happen if you have a bad race and the championship rivals in front of you have a better race. And as you see there, it was just the slightest of nudges between Harrison and Fletcher, but it's going to cause Kieran Harrison a lot. But with the cars so close together, it could still be the case that if he's able to get back at the back of the pack, that he'll be able to, as we now look on board with Mark Fletcher in 3rd, and what's happened to Harrison down into 10th place, and there is a bit of a gap now, so that could be a hammer blow in terms of Harrison getting decent points in this race, especially with Nicole Foggy as championship leader leading it.
Yes, but he's within a second of Jack McIntyre, who is within a second of 7th place or so he could get more points out of this one. And don't forget, whoever finishes 10th in this race is on pole position for race 2. So this could be almost the reverse of what we saw happen to Nicole Foggy a week ago at Silverstone, when Nicole had a bad first race and fought back thanks to the reverse grid in race 2 to outscore Kieran and bring that championship gap back down. Maybe that's what Kieran's going to have to do today to try and overcome this. We're on board with him now then, the man that was leading the points coming into this race. As things stand, not been leading the points, but thinking long term into the second race later on, maybe he can still find a way back to the top of the pile. Matthew Turnbull, by the way, has the fastest lap. That's worth a championship point, 2 minutes 0.45. Because tyre wear isn't a huge issue here at Monza, and these long straights and the slipstream we've spoken about all coming into play as well, I think we could still see fastest laps being improved upon later on in the race. Right now, it's Turnbull who is the fastest driver out there.
Matthew Turnbull, we've seen him have a lot of pace during the course of the season, but he's just not had the luck. Also, another driver that had a few issues on that lap was Ricky Collard. I saw him going straight on to the Variante Ascari, hitting the barrier. So Ricky Collard, who was in this fight with the Mendes and Onzo Cole, has lost a lot of time and has dropped 13 seconds behind. We have a replay. Oh, it's contact with Tom Onzo Cole. So that's what's happened there. Onzo Cole and Collard have made contact on the entry to the Variante Ascari, and it's the BMW factory driver Collard who's come off second best in that one.
Oh dear. Well, those two were battling away earlier on, weren't they? We saw Collard go past Tom, and Tom fortunately getting into it there a bit with Ricky after that point as well. Nicole Foggy then with the race lead right now, and actually 0.2 of a second clear of Johnny Brandon, who is second. So that little spin for Kieran Harrison has had an effect on the cars at the front of the field. I've lost my pictures again, by the way, unfortunately. I'll try and get that sorted. What I can see on the timing screen is that Kieran Harrison has caught up now to Jason Cooper and Jack McIntyre and Matthew Turnbull. Once again, the top 10 cars all in one long line. Harrison could still gain some places here.
But also, he could play a tactical game as well. Does he want the points in this one, or does he want to be near the front for the second race? Because that's sort of the beauty of 10th place, is that you have either option on the table, really. As we now go through the parabolic, and it's the Cole Foggy, Johnny Brandon now with a little bit of a touch with Mark Fletcher, and that's going to allow Jack Sedgwick to go down the inside as well. So as close as ever for the lead, and the Cole Foggy just starting to stretch his legs, and there's two XVR cars of Foggy and Brandon 1-2, with Year One Racing's Mark Fletcher in third. Then it's Jack Sedgwick in fourth, Dave Baker rounds like your top five, Michael Epps is in sixth, Turnbull seventh, McIntyre eighth, Cooper ninth, Harrison 10th, Ramstein 11th, like that. And if they keep fighting like this, we could have an 11-car battle for the lead as the two XVR teammates go side by side. Mark Fletcher as well, trying to get on the action as well. And he's having a little bit of a nudge there with Johnny Brandon. All fair, it's fair and good racing at the moment. But I think as we get to the later stage of the race, we might have a couple of laps to go. Things may get a little bit more robust.
I think that's almost a given, really, given how frenetic the racing has been, and still so many drivers in contention for points. But I think you might be right about Harrison, because having caught the back of this pack, he's not yet really made any inroads on the cars directly in front. So, yeah, Kieran might just be happy to settle for 10th spot. They're heading to the Lesmos now. What a brilliant sight they make. The two Joyce Design liveried cars, though, have fought their way to the front here. Foggy leading the way, Johnny Brandon second, Mark Fletcher third, Sedgwick fourth, Baker fifth, Epps sixth, Turnbull seventh, McIntyre eighth, Cooper ninth, and Harrison 10th. And actually, Maxime Ramstein's with them as well. So it's 11 cars battling away here for the top spots, and still real idea what order they'll finish in. In fact, it's likely not to be decided until they come out of that final corner for the final time.
And 4 of our top 5 championship runners are in there. The only one that's missing from it is Ross McFarlane. Not sure if McFarlane's even racing tonight. I haven't seen his name, but it's a great battle at the front of the field. We've got 11 cars, and you really can't pick a winner at the moment. But the two, as you say, Joyce Design XVR cars are Foggy and Brandon right up there. And also a shout out to Mark Sykes as well, who's produced most of the liveries for this championship, as we're seeing on screen now. And really beautiful liveries that have been designed for championship. Mark Fletcher's gone wide through the Parabolica, and that is going to lose him a lot of time because of how closely and compact this pack is. He's gone from third down to eighth, just like that.
Yep, so easy to do when you go for a move and it doesn't work. It can really ground rather than gain it. Following Mark Fletcher now across the start-finish line as they head into the chicane, into the final stage of the race now. Really, this is go time. They've got to try and make their final moves. And Kieran Harrison there is trying now to go around the outside of Jason Cooper. That gets in the inside for the left-hander, the blue and white Ryan number 9 car we're following here, the championship leader, but they're 3 abreast in front of him. Whilst Harrison would like to gain some more ground here, this is also risky business because everybody else is starting to race more and more aggressively here as the intensity ratchets up in the final few laps. The worst thing Harrison could do is throw away a race 2 pole position by trying to get an extra 2 or 3 points from race 1.
That is a very good point. You see, Maxim Ramstein in 11th place is also currently 4th in the championship, so he needs points just as much as Harrison does, and Ramstein wants to put everything in his power, you can imagine, to try and get that position, and Kieran Harrison is stuck between a rock and a hard place as he makes a move now, though, down the inside of Jack McIntyre. Does he try and go for his high position in race 1, or does he try and go for race 2? But he knows if he gets it wrong, that it could end up with egg on his face. It's a really interesting dynamic for Harrison to be in, and at the moment he's trying to make moves, but at the same time you can tell he's been very tentative about it. He's not making any moves which would be considered high risk. He's happy to just stick him behind now as we're on the final lap, so this is where it all goes down as we come down towards the Parabolica for the final time.
And now, can you exit the Parabolica in 2nd or 3rd and get to the line first? That's the next question. Foggy has them side by side behind. That's exactly what he wants to see, because Jack Sedgwick is trying to go around the outside of Johnny Brandon, but Brandon with the tight line gets a good exit. Can he steal a victory here from his teammates? He's going to try it. He pulls to the outside line, side by side. Get the photo finish camera ready. It's going to be close, but it just about is Nicole Foggy, who hangs on at the finish line by 7/100ths of a second. Johnny Brandon 2nd, Jack Sedgwick 3rd, David Baker 4th, Matthew Turnbull gets 5th, some valuable points there after his earlier issues. Michael Epps is 6th, Mark Fletcher 7th, and Kieran Harrison gained 1 more position there at the very final corner, went from 9th to 8th, so he will add to his points tally, but still starts 3rd on the grid for race 2. Jason Cooper is in 9th, rounding out the top 10, Jack McIntyre. All sorts of craziness going on behind there, involving Chris Knox and Freddie Hewitt, as the last few battles now head across the start-finish line. Chris Slater here we're watching in the RAF car. Both the RAF cars, in fact, not that far away from each other as they head across the line, with Slater in 24th place. Jamie Dory back there in 26th as well, yet to cross the line. Dan Harper is 25th. He must have been delayed at the start of the race, and it's been another race in which he will not score very many points at all, and so he falls further away in the overall championship, further away in the Pro Championship. In the Pro Championship, though, how did Josh Malin get on? Josh Malin ended up in 15th place overall, but there were quite a few pro drivers ahead of him. Looking at people like Mike Epps in 6th, we've got Bobby Thompson 12th, Dave Newsham 14th. So Malin will not be winning the pro class this time around, and so we see the overall championship start to twist and turn a little bit, but also that Pro Championship, it looked as though maybe Malin was becoming the dominant force. Not quite the case tonight.
But with Michael Epps having missed last week at Silverstone, it could have been a worse scenario for Josh Malin, because although Epps is a fast driver, as we all know, he has missed rounds, so that puts him a few more points behind. As you see, Bobby Thompson and Dave Newsham are starting to steadily gain points as Sean Hollenby crosses the line in his Powermax Racing eSeries debut in 27th place. That car has seen better days, but Sean Hollenby getting to the flag, which is the main thing.
Yep, he got to the end, and he will be looking to join in the fun again in race 2 a little bit later on. Let's take a look then at the results. It is Nicole Foggy who gets a 3rd victory of the season to take championship lead. That is not what we predicted after qualifying, I think it's fair to say. Johnny Brandon 2nd, Jack Sedgwick in 3rd, then David Baker 4th, and Matthew Turnbull will round out the top 5 finishers. And it's Mike Epps in 6th, Mark Fletcher 7th, 8th for Kieran Harrison, 9th Jason Cooper, and 10th for Jack McIntyre. The top 10 drivers covered by 3.6 seconds at the flag, but the top 5 were covered by less than a second. What a brilliant finish it was. 11th, Maxime Ramstein. 12th was Bobby Thompson. Then Lane O'Connor, Dave Newsham, and Josh Malin will round out the top 15. Then it's Ty Keveth, Ashley Beard, Lewis Goodway, Tom Onslow Cole, and Chris Knox getting themselves top 20 finishes. Freddie Hewitt, Marlon Menden, Ricky Collard gained 7 spots there to 23rd, whilst Chris Slater is 24th, and Dan Harper, one of the big losers, started in 5th, finishes in 25th. Then it's Jamie Dory, Sean Hollenby, Lee Horn, Ollie Peacock, and Ollie Wayne, with 30 drivers running at the end. Michael Crease, Jan Ehrlichet, Seb Perez, Max Coates, and George Bland were all on finishers. The biggest mover in that race appears to have been Josh Malin. He gained 9 positions from where he started, but there are an awful lot of drivers who gained an awful lot of positions in that race, as we kind of thought would be the case. So I think it is time to have a chat with our finishes then, and we will start with our race 1 winner, Nicole Foggy, who will drag into the comms now. Nicole, well done. A 3rd race victory, and with Kieran Harrison's issues dropping him down to 8th place, that gives you the championship lead. Not bad so far.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, not too bad. Anything could have happened in that race, and it sort of did. Kieran I think he got hit back from Fletcher, was it, coming into the first chicane? So unlucky for him for sure. No doubt, something's going to happen to me at some point. Well, hopefully not, but we'll see what happens.
Bit like a positive outlook, isn't it, Nicole? It's going to be an interesting second race, I think. You're, of course, going to have to come from 10th on the grid, and the advantage of Kieran is that he starts 3rd on the grid. So is your game plan going into that second race? You've got to try and beat him if you can, I guess.
I mean, I think I'll be taking it decently easy at the start. Because we were doing a bit of pushing at one point. And it's trying to decide when am I going to make the pass and how long should I push for. And I think I made a mistake on the first one, especially I made a mistake on the pass anyway, so I didn't make it against Sedgwick and Harrison, and then I decided to wait a little bit longer, and it seemed to work out. So we'll see if something similar happens in the next one.
Indeed we will. Well, best of luck for race number 2. Hopefully we'll see you back up here again in the second race. But congratulations on the 3rd race win of the season.
Nice one. Thank you very much.
Foggy then, our race winner, Johnny Brandon, came home in 2nd place. Johnny, congratulations. Welcome to the podium. That was exactly the kind of result you needed.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. That was great. I'm sweating.
Me both. It was intense, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, proper intense, that one, but thoroughly enjoyed that. Chuffed to bits, and Nicole got the win, so perfect.
We saw you two kind of working together in qualifying earlier on. Was there a game plan at all going into the race as well, or was it every man for himself?
There was a game plan. Try and help each other. Nicole needs the points. Well, they're more valuable to Nicole than they are to me. I arguably need them more, but they're more valuable to Nicole. So that was always part of the game plan. But it's all right to have a game plan, but to have it play out is a completely separate issue. And yeah, we had a bit of luck there. It come close for me a couple of times. It was a little bit scary a couple of times, but it was great.
So hard, isn't it, to be attacking and defending, and then to throw in this extra pressure of trying to help out your sort of teammate. No wonder you're sweating at the end of that race, because you really don't get a break, do you?
No, you're even when you're on the straight, you're constantly watching your mirrors, thinking what's going to happen at the next corner. Where's the best place to put the car? Where should I be? Where shouldn't I be? What are they going to do? Yeah, it's non-stop, but that's why we love it. It was fun.
Great entertainment, I can tell you. Well done on the podium, Johnny. Best of luck for race 2.
Thanks very much, guys. Take care.
There we go then. That is Johnny Brandon's 2nd place finisher. Now, Jack Sedgwick, I thought, was rating for an interview, but he might have disappeared, it seems. So Jack Sedgwick, who finished 3rd in the race, but maybe we'll chat to a little bit later on. But now it is that time of the night where we have to change servers, change to the next session, because race number 2 is not that far away. The top 10 reversed grid will see Jack McIntyre and Jason Cooper share the front row of the grid, with a few interesting names down towards the front as well. Kieran Harrison really needs some points if he can. So what we'll do, we will take a very, very short break, I think, and then we will be back with a few more special guests who are ready and waiting to come and have a chat with us, including a name that the BTCC fans amongst you, I'm sure, will be very familiar with. So don't go anywhere. Plenty more racing from the Power Max Racing eSeries here at the Cathedral of Speed, the Monza circuit in Italy, your way.
I've got that lightning inside me, son of a god. I'm like a titan that's rising, no, just you watch. I'm stepping into fate, there is no time to waste. I've got that lightning inside me, this is how legends are made. This is how legends are cranking up on the throttle, victory is mine. Show you the harder the battle, harder I fight. I've come too far to quit. Step back, I'm going in. I'm cranking up on the throttle. This is how legends are made.
Welcome to the PMR workshops here in Warwickshire, home of Sterling Insurance with PowerMax Racing. The guys right now, as you can see behind us, are just finishing off all the mechanical build of the cars, so they'll be ready later this afternoon. There's 10 of us that work on the cars full time, which rises to about 30 over a race weekend. What a lot of people don't realise is that motorsport is a lifestyle, it's not a 9 to 5 job. We don't come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and go home at 5 o'clock at night. A lot of the time we're here till midnight making sure those cars are ready, and if on a Wednesday night when the cars need to be built, if they're not ready, if we have to stay here till 4 o'clock in the morning, we'll be here till 4 o'clock in the morning. Touring car racing being what it is, rough and tumble is very much a part of the game. So for every race weekend, we have to make sure we've got enough spare parts to make sure the cars look spot on every time they go out on the track. We take a spare set of doors for each car, 2 spare front ends for each car, including the bonnet, a spare set of skirts, spare rear bumper and spare rear arches, just to make sure that everything's as good as it can be. We operate what we call a lifing system on all of our components, so every single component on the car has a serial number on it. We have a computer system that logs that to make sure that everything from brake discs, drive shafts, basically everything on the car. We know exactly how many hours work it's done, exactly how many kilometres it's done, and when and where it was used. Every time the cars come back from the track, first thing we do is what we call a set down, so they'll be put back into their standard setup, and then we'll make sure that the car is perfectly straight and as it should be, especially if we've had an incident over the weekend. If we have, and we suspect the shell might be bent, it'll go down to our fabrication shop. So by Tuesday lunchtime, the cars are completely stripped to a component form, and by mid-afternoon, the shell will be on the jig, and Colin, our fabricator, will be working on making sure the car is completely straight. One of the most important tools in our arsenal is our damper dyno. This basically means we can put our dampers, which are all controlled, so every car on the grid has got exactly the same Penske dampers on it. We can basically strip the dampers and change the characteristics of them. So before each race round, Martin, team manager and chief engineer, will spend 3 or 4 days in the damper room, basically stripping those dampers, assessing them and working out the best setup for each weekend. One thing that might surprise even the super hard fans out there are the amount of tyres we use over a race weekend. So quite simply, we use 40 tyres over the space of a race weekend between the 2 cars, plus any wets that we might use. That consists of 24 brand new tyres from Dunlop and 16 what we call carryovers, so they will be basically the best that we've got from the previous round, and they'll mostly be used for free practice sessions and checking setup and things like that. Every race weekend, the guys during FP1 and FP2, you'll see them go out, they'll do maybe 1 lap and then come back in, doing what we call a scrub on all the tyres, just taking the top layer off it, and then a lot of you will see the guys in the pits basically scraping the top layer off the tyres with a heat gun. Those heat guns are at 650 degrees and will literally take all what we call pickup, which is the rubber off the track, off the top of that tyre to get back to the base layer underneath. We tend to do that about 2 or 3 times on each tyre, depending on how much use they've had. We've now got a 5-week break between Alton Park and Snetterton. None of us really get a break during that time. It's used more of a time for development, so things that we've been working on through the year, looking at data that we've had throughout the year, and we'll use that to look at how we can improve the cars for the rest of the season. It's been a good year so far. There's been some ups, some downs, but generally it's been pretty positive, and we're looking forward to seeing what the rest of the year is going to bring.
Welcome back, everybody. Round number 8 of the Power Max Racing E-Series is coming your way in just a few minutes' time. The first race was a typical Monza slipstreaming thriller, and I don't see any reason why race 2 will be any different, because this top 10 grid reversal, which will jumble the order up a little bit, well, it does really, is it takes the 10 drivers that were fighting for the win in race 1 and starts them the other way round, but they were all in the fight for the victory, and they're all clearly capable of running a similar pace, so we should be in for a near mirror image, I think, what happened in race 1, where the big story was that Nicole Foggy, second place in the championship, took the race victory to move into the championship lead, whilst the erstwhile championship leader, Kieran Harrison, had a spin at turn number 1 late in the going, spun down to 10th place. He recovered to 8th, but has clearly been outscored by his championship rivals, Nicole Foggy and rest of the front runners in the championship, Matthew Turnbull being the other big one who was 3rd in the points. So it's really turned the championship on its head, and that's just what we wanted, because we're approaching the halfway mark of the season. The more unpredictability we can have, the better, as far as we're concerned. Also, the more distinguished professional drivers we can have racing with us, the better. And there are a couple of new drivers making their Power Max Racing E-Series debuts here tonight. One of them is joining us now in the comments and is the one, the only, Creasy, Michael Crease, star of the British Touring Car Championship. How are you enjoying your first taste of the Power Max Racing E-Series? Very well, clearly. Creasy is new to all of this and maybe hasn't quite realised he needs to unmute his mic or something. We'll try again. Creasy, can you hear us? Oh, the joys of doing this over the internet. We'll try him again in a minute or two. We're determined to bring you an interview with Michael Crease before the night's over. Instead, what I'll do is hand you over to Ed May, our roving reporter, who has got a very special guest actually with us in the comms box. Ed, good evening. Who have you got with us?
Well, I've got Luke Clayton here, who's the founder and owner of Fast Star. Obviously, if you've been following this championship for a little while, you'll know that Fast Star have a competition going on for 10 grand, and I believe we've got Luke here to tell us a little bit about it.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello, we're doing very well here, Luke. I believe you've got some information about this prize you've got.
Yes, we've run it for a few weeks now. So far, no one's actually won it, but we've had 2 or 3 in particular that have come very, very close. So we're within 1,000th of a second, so really, really close. We just sort of thought we'd inject a little bit of fun into this, and it's not just to sort of get more people watching, but also just a bit more interaction, really.
Can you? Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, could you run us through the competition, just for those of us who might be tuning in for the first time and might not know what the prize is and how you can enter?
Sure. Yeah. So what we've actually done, we started the competition so that people could have a crack at guessing the FTD. So it could be over either race, and if you get it right to within 3 decimal places, the prize is £10,000. So we thought it was quite straightforward, injects a little bit of fun, and you got the chance to win quite a nice stack of cash.
And obviously, you've done a little bit of racing in your own time. You drive the Bentley GT3 in the European Time Attack series, and has that been part of your reason for trying to partner with a series like this? Is your love for racing? And while we haven't got any racing going on, we've moving now towards an esports market?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we, I originally started up a conversation with Cy from PowerMax a little while back because we talked about doing sort of various projects together. So part of what we do, and you'll see more and more of this coming out over the sort of coming months. We're really trying to create like a central sort of motorsport hub, like a really useful resource. So we'll have like a lot of we'll do like a lot of technical videos. We're doing a lot of industry talk. We're doing a lot of career stuff as well. So different careers within motorsport, just sort of explaining various routes into the sport itself. And part of that was actually doing some work with PowerMax, partly on the technical side, but also a bit of an insight into touring cars, because it is great to see them flying around the track, and watching the action is absolutely phenomenal. But there are a lot of unsung heroes in racing, and we really want to show people what goes on behind the scenes. All the hard work that goes into running these phenomenal cars.
Yeah, definitely. It's very good to have you on board with Fast R, but we're going to have to come away from you now, Luke. It's been very, very good to talk to you because I believe practice is over and the cars are starting to line up on the grid.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks guys. So here is how they line up then for our reversed grid race here at Monza. Top 10 reversal, remember, based on the result from race 1. So it's Jack McIntyre on pole with Jason Cooper alongside. Then Kieran Harrison one to watch for from 5th with Matthew Turnbull 6th, then David Baker and Jack Sedgwick with our top 2 from race 1, Johnny Brandon and Nicole Foggy, starting 9th and 10th respectively. Then it's Maxime Ramstein, Bobby Thompson, Lane O'Connor, Dave Newsham, Josh Malin and the rest filing in behind. Keep an eye on some of the quick drivers towards the back of the field, as well as our championship battle that is continuing to twist and turn race by race. Is the chance maybe for Kieran Harrison, the white and blue Ryan insurance car from 3rd on the grid, to get some points back. Lights go out then, away they go. Good to even start made by all of our front row drivers, but it is going to be a slightly better start, I think, now on the inside for Jason Cooper. He will seize the lead, but here comes Kieran Harrison, who wants the race lead. He wants the championship lead back if he can get it. Goes to the inside, to the outside, tries to go right round the outside of the race leader to get the inside line from the left-hander at the chicane, which he might just do. They're still wheel to wheel. Jack McIntyre is there alongside Matthew Turnbull, who has charged his way through the order. Matthew Turnbull up 3 places already into 3rd spot overall, but it's Cooper that leads the charge through the right-hander down towards the 2nd chicane. Kieran Harrison quite literally in tow. Turnbull 3rd, McIntyre 4th, and Mark Fletcher rounding out the top 5.
Some drivers making moves in the early stages of this race as we go down through the Secondaria Variante for the first time, and it is Jason Cooper, the former BRSCC Fiesta and Castle Coombe Saloon champion, who has the lead. A move further, that being made there by Mark Fletcher as well. But as you say, we've seen drivers who making Turnbull up 3 places as well. Harrison got a good start as well from the 2nd row, and he was right alongside, and he almost took the lead. I think he caught a bit too much of the curb on the exit, which allowed Jason Cooper to just get that bit of extra momentum. But as we see for the top 10 reverse, what it's already done is put the drivers who were at the front of the pack at the back of that battle pack, because at the end of the last race, there were a 10 or 11 fighting for that lead.
Yes, but as we saw in race 1, you can gain ground, you can overtake people here at Monza, and so for people like Nicole Foggy, for example, there is still a chance for him to pick his way through the field, but he has not gained the same kind of ground that people like Matthew Turnbull have. So Turnbull definitely the one on a charge here. Down towards the final turn we go for the first time. Bobby Thompson there joining in the battling too. Bobby Thompson finds himself in 12th place as they turn into the final turn. There was one car running wide there, that was Mike Epps, unfortunately, who's drifted way wide, tries to rejoin the circuit alongside people like Bobby Thompson, actually. So he's right alongside Thompson, the yellow and black car this is, and Michael Epps on the outside line. And he's going to get freight train here, I think, because Josh Malin and Ty Keveth are also there trying to find a way through. And so that was a costly error for the man that finished inside the top 6 in the previous race. They make their way back down towards the first corner, but will get through here safely. Very, very close stuff indeed through the chicane, and you've got to leave people room through here because a slight bit of contact, you're going to hold yourselves up, and everyone else is right there on your tail.
Like there's a bit of contact further back, but as you say, that first corner is so crucial because it's a run from the exit of the corner right the way pretty much to the chicane, and it looks like we're going to have a look at the replay now of some of the action that we missed on the first lap.
Michael Crease, I believe, has been involved, unfortunately. Maybe it's for the best that we didn't speak to him between races. Yeah, he's had to head to the pit lane after this contact that he was involved in at the start of the race. Lane O'Connor also in the pit lane. I was about to say it had been a slightly cleaner start than in race 1, but there was still drama towards the back of the pack, Dan.
Yeah, it's looking at the replay now. That's like Ricky Collard involved in some drama there as well. And it seems a few of the pros further down have had issues. Michael Crease, a retirement. So sadly, Michael Crease has retired from the race, so he will not be taking any further part in it. But we're just looking now at Marlon Menden, and it looks like it was some of the pros who got together.
And that's a shame, 2 or 3 of them here getting together. Of course, that's the problem when they're all in the middle of the field. Then these kind of things can go wrong. Dan Harper, though, has gained 6th place just from where he started. He's into 9th. And, oh, no, he's been off, we believe, actually, Dan Harper. Although he's being in 19th place at the moment.
Yeah, contact there going through the first corner. Chris Knox involved, and then behind as well is a bit more. And there's a car that's like there's one backing up, going down the straight is backwards into the wall. So there's drama going on all over the place here at Autodromo Monza as Dan Harper down in 18th place. We're looking at him on screen, but at the front it's Kieran Harrison there who's taking the lead. So despite all of what's been going on around him, Harrison has got to the front.
Colette here as well, working hard to try and catch them. He's racing with Josh Malin. Tom Onslow Cole's had a moment though, look, because he's slowed down the pit straight. Here's what happened. Whoa! Coming out of the final corner, clatters into the barriers. Now, was that Johnny Brandon possibly that he had contact with? Quite tell, but either way, it's Onslow Cole was out at the worst. Yeah, it was Johnny Brandon getting confirmation that Onslow Cole had that contact with. And your thought on that one? It looked almost like Tom was drifting wide, but could Johnny maybe have left him more room?
I didn't get the best view of it for the cameras, but it sort of looked like they're racing very hard, and we got the stewarding team of Martin Brinkworth and Mark Seitz, who will look into that one into further detail. So that's one maybe potentially for the stewards to have a look at. But it's expected though when you're racing sort of this close that there is going to be the odd little bits of contact, and side by side as well. It looked like behind Nicole Foggy as well. So we got action there. That's the McIntyre and Baker, but unlike the first race, it looks like we are starting to see quite a bit of separation at the moment as well, and then in front.
Yes, within reason, the top sort of 4 drivers are together. Kieran Harrison, Jason Cooper, Matthew Turnbull and Mark Fletcher we're seeing here. Nicole Foggy, though, is the man in 5th, and we saw him do this in race 1. Remember, Nicole started race 1 in 6th and came through to win, and he's doing exactly what he did in the previous race. He's fought his way through the secondary pack of cars, and he's now starting to bridge the gap to the race leaders. The starting point, he's about 1.8 seconds behind Mark Fletcher in 4th position. So if these top 4 start racing each other a bit harder, there's every chance that Foggy will be able to catch them, and he will be able to still be a part of the fight for the race lead. Right now, though, it is a 4-way fight at the front. Kieran Harrison really could do with the win after Foggy took the championship lead from him in race number 1. Jason Cooper, Matthew Turnbull and Mark Fletcher, though, all keen to stop him. Here comes Cooper on board with the 2nd place man, who is about to come the 1st place man because he pulls to the outside into the first corner. Matthew Turnbull, 2 wheels on the grass, trying to go up the inside there. They're all super late on the brake, and this side-by-side racing is precisely what Nicole Foggy needs. Turnbull ends up getting edged out, actually, through the second part of the chicane, but already Foggy has pretty much caught them. That was nearly 2 seconds they held each other up by, just by running side-by-side through the first chicane.
And that's the last thing that Matthew Turnbull and Nicole Foggy, Kieran Harrison and Turnbull want to see is Nicole Foggy catching that pack up very quickly. They did have a bit of a gap, but them fighting has completely disintegrated the gap. It's now 4 tenths between Fletcher in 4th and the 5th place car of Foggy. Another great battle we're looking on screen now. That's the battle with Michael Epps, Josh Malin and Bobby Thompson. Bobby Thompson taking too much of the curb there, and iRacing software has given them a slowdown penalty, so maybe took a little bit too much curb there. That's Josh Malin now, right on the back bumper of Michael Epps, and this, of course, is the battle for the lead in our pro category.
Yeah, indeed, and don't forget that the Pro Championship is its own individual thing. Josh Malin was leading the points arriving here tonight, with Bobby Thompson in 2nd, just 14 points behind. So Josh Malin definitely needs to try and score as many points as he can here. Bobby Thompson's down in 14th place, which by my reckoning is about 3rd in the Pro Championship. So this is a good chance here for Malin to try and score a class victory. It's rare, isn't it, that we see the pro drivers fighting for class victory outside of the top 10, but but well, this is the fight just actually inside the top 10. 9th and 10th places these two are running. We've got Johnny Brandon right behind them as well, with Jack Sedgwick and Lewis Goodway and Bobby Thompson. They're all in one long line of cars, turning their way now through the final corner, the Parabolica. There's Jack Sedgwick going through, Lewis Goodway right behind him, and Jack Sedgwick, you'd have thought would be a bit further up the order than this. He was 9th place in the championship arriving at Monza, and after some promising pace so far tonight, not really able to deliver so far as at least this race 2 race result is looking.
Fastest lap for Nicole Foggy, under 2 minutes, 1:59.7. I saw him going side by side with Mark Fletcher as well, going through the first corner, but it's action all over here. We see this battle. Goodway, they're getting a little bit loose, and Bobby Thompson looking for an opportunity, but it's not quite going to present itself there for Bobby Thompson. But all through the field, we've got big packs of cars fighting very hard. But Nicole Foggy, though, that I think it's the first lap time we've seen tonight where it's been under 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was just checking the race 1 results and I couldn't see anyone else down at that sort of pace. So 1:59.77 means that he is now only half a second behind the top 4, although he gained most of that time at the start of the lap, it must be said. Jan Ehrlichey here we're watching. He's racing Ollie Peacock for 19th position, just in case you thought the fighting further down the order was any less intense than it is for the lead. Oh, big contact. Jan Ehrlichey is unceremoniously dumped into the gravel trap, and he'll lose more places now. Jamie Dorey and Chris Knox will go up the inside as a result of the loss of momentum. Jan Ehrlichey, unfortunately, not having the best of times. He was a retirement from race number 1. A very quick driver is Jan in TCR machinery. Remember, he is a world TCR star, racing not in an Audi, but still in similar machinery. And so you'd have thought maybe he'd have taken to this a little bit better. But as good as his pace has been on occasion, one of those drivers, isn't he, Dan, that every time there's an accident, every time there's some contact, every time there's a pile-up at the start of the race, Jan, unfortunately, never seems to be far away.
It's like his Audi's the magnet, but as you say, he's a world TCR driver, motorsport race winner. He'll be used to the elbows out racing, and it's just how to sort of adapt to it. And another good move there, that's Max Coates on Slater. So Max Coates makes a position up, and there's also been Ehrlichey. We've just given him the commentator's curse, I think, on that one. And Chris Knox. So Chris Knox, a very battered Audi, and it's contact with Ehrlichey. It looks like on the exit of Ariante Scott, Chris Knox took a lot of curb, and Ehrlichey was the innocent victim. You got to say that one for the second part of the collision. It sort of happened through the mid to exit of the corner.
Yeah, they made contact going through the right-hander at Ascari, and then that put Knox over the curb for the final left-hander, and that just launched the car skywards and right into the path of Ehrlichey again, who really couldn't avoid him. So it was unfortunate to see what had been a good battle turn sour for them. Watching David Baker now, though, coming through. He's in 6th position. He's nearly 4 seconds actually behind the top 5, but he's got his hands rather full with Maxime Ramstein, Jack McIntyre, Michael Epps, Jack Sedgwick, Josh Malin, Lewis Goodway. I could read right the way down the list. Basically 6th to 14th places here, all nose to tail, and David Baker's struggling at the moment to get away.
We've got a replay as well of an incident involving Max Coates. It looks like going through the first corner. Max Coates loses it himself and then gets collected by the Slater. It looks like the driver involved there as well. So Slater and Coates having to come in together, and Jan Ehrlichey, it looks like in the background there as well, just come out of one incident and has a second. We're just looking on board now with Slater going through the first corner. Oh, there was a tap there. I didn't see that on initial viewing, but Chris Slater gone into the back there, Max Coates there, and that could potentially be a penalty for Chris Slater.
Well, that is a shame for Chris, who continues on his way, but a long way down the order, obviously, after a couple of skirmishes that he's had. Right, back to the race leaders, where things have been rather intense. So we've been hearing David Mayer, roving reporter, has been watching this lot. A bit of contact made, we believe, a lap or so ago amongst the lead pack. Going into the first chicane, Turnbull, Fletcher and Foggy coming together, and that has allowed Kieran Harrison and Jason Cooper to pull away now, look, by just over a second. So Jason Cooper and Kieran Harrison might just be working together here to get away from these three, and if these three have any sense, Dan, surely they'll be doing the same. But of course, I should have known, they're not. They're side by side into the chicane. It looks like it's every man for themselves as Nicole Foggy launches up the inside of Mark Fletcher. That was always going to end in contact. Ooh. Oh dear, and Fletcher exits stage right now. That could be significant, because although Nicole Foggy has continued without damage or delay, any time you have contact, particularly at the pointy end of the field, it will always generate a discussion after the race, and one thing Foggy can't afford is a post-race penalty.
that could be a crucial moment in the championship. We saw Nicole Foggy take the win. It was just getting a bit impatient, I think. He saw in front of him Harrison and Cooper, and it was a very sort of late move down the inside of Mark Fletcher, and there's not really much Fletcher could do about there. There's contact, and it just tapped him at the point there where the car went round, and I'm very unlucky there for Mark Fletcher, but Nicole Foggy is probably one of the worst things that could have happened to him in the race. He's been involved in contact. He's not lost positions on the road, but as you say, the clerks of the course could have something to say after the race of that one if it's been looked at, but we'll find out probably more about that going into next week's meeting. Of course, there isn't live stewarding as far as I'm aware in this championship in the Powermax Racing eSeries, so any stewarding I think does get carried over into the next week.
Yes, indeed. So Bobby Thompson here coming through the chicane. He is into 9th place now, so he's worked his way into the top 10. The biggest movers, though, Harper and Lee Horn. Lee Horn's having a great race. He's in 14th position. Dan Harper just ahead of him in 13th. They've gained 12 or 13 places each. Bobby Thompson here is trying to fend off Johnny Brandon and trying to find a way ahead of Josh Malin still, but they're staying single file for the time being. The leaders, well, it's once again a 3-way fight for the lead now. Matthew Turnbull has reeled in Kieran Harrison and Jason Cooper, and in fact sets the fastest lap, a 1:59.75 for Turnbull in 3rd position. Matthew Turnbull on a tear. There he is. Look, he's right with the leaders. So that little bit of contact that he had with Foggy earlier on and that delayed him through the chicane, fought back nicely from that, and so he now is back with the leading 2, and crucially they're over 2 seconds now clear of Foggy and Ramstein behind, and I don't think there's enough time now. As quick as Foggy has been today, I don't think he's going to have time to catch these top 3 unless they start mixing it up again, which they more than likely will at some point.
That's always the element you got to add to this. Will they? Well, there's of course, even though Jason Cooper's not high up in the championship, he'll want the race win. A race win in the Powermax Racing eSeries, a very prestigious championship we have here. So for someone like Jason Cooper, who maybe not at the top of the championship, to get a win will mean just as much as for Jason Cooper just to sort of say, I'm here, I can drive. So Jason Cooper's ability obviously never really questioned. As you say, in real life, he's been very quick and is a double champion. He's won both the BRS Fiesta. As we now see that Bobby Thompson has gone past Josh Malin. Michael Epps has dropped down a long way as well. So that pro battle we were looking at changed completely. And it's Bobby Thompson who now has the lead from Josh Malin. And Michael Epps, although he's dropped down to 16th place overall, he still looks like to be 3rd in that class.
And they're fighting here for 8th position right now. Thompson is 8th, Malin is 9th, Johnny Brandon 10th. If I cast my mind back a couple of weeks to Donington Park, the season opener, we were struggling to find any of the pro drivers that were even troubling the top 10, with the one exception being Dan Harper. All of the other pro drivers, definitely people like Thompson and Malin, were well outside the top 10, so they've really improved their pace. You know, I know we're calling them the pro drivers, but as far as sim racing goes, they're rookies. A lot of these drivers have not competed at this level sim racing. Some of them hadn't even tried sim racing until 2 or 3 weeks ago. So this level of improvement is exactly what we hope to see from them, and it's now starting to show as they're fighting more and more regularly within the top 10, and of course they've got their own championship battle to worry about as well. So we finally are getting to see a little bit more from some of our more well-known drivers in the championship. As we just saw bump drafting each other down the pit straight, a 3-way bump draft, so they're definitely working together for the time being, which gives us another chance to check in some of the battles further back. There's Freddie Hewitt, the youngster in the Fast R car, and once again we thank Fast R for their partnership with the Powermax Racing eSeries and that fantastic £10,000 prize that they're giving away. If you can guess the fastest race lap of the day, so the 1,000th of a second, you will be entered, or you will win £1,000, and Freddie carrying the Fast R livery for us today, and he is running in that car at the moment, some way down the order, 19th place, racing Jamie Dory there for a spot just within the top 20. Chris Knox here, he had that spin earlier on, and that dropped him outside of the top 20. A lot of drivers outside the top 20 that you wouldn't expect to see down there. Tom Onslow Cole 21st after his spin. Dave Newsham dropped 10 places from 14th on the grid to 24th where he is at the moment. Actually, generally speaking, Dan, slightly less argy-bargy in this race, and it is now settling down into some quite nice battles up and down the order.
looked like a moment there for Chris Slater. We saw him get a wheel on the grass. I think he just about saved it. But as you say, these drivers, even though they're sort of down in sort of 23rd, 24th place, they are really pushing. And as you say, a lot of these drivers wouldn't have done sim racing before, certainly not to this level. And the level of competitiveness in this field is massive. It's not the sort of thing that you can just pick up and play as such. This is obviously iRacing, the simulator itself is high-end stuff, and just to be at the level that the drivers are, as you say, the pro drivers are getting there week on week, and it's fantastic to see as we see Mark Fletcher following the contact they have in Nicole Foggy in 17th place out of the points, and now under pressure from Ollie Peacock. And Ollie's a driver who we saw on the podium last time out, so for Ollie Peacock compared to last week, it's a very quiet meeting for him so far.
Yeah, which is interesting, isn't it, really? Because this is a similar track in a way to Silverstone, but that's just the look of the draw sometimes. Once you get bogged down in the midfield, it's hard to get out of there. Here's a good battle. Ashley Beard there defending. Oh, there was a big crash somewhere in the background there. I'm not entirely sure who that was. Ashley Beard, though, defending nice. Oh, there it is. Dan Harper was involved. Is that Bobby Thompson, possibly? Let's see, Dan, what can you see?
Looks like there was a slow... Oh, what's happened there? It looks like Bobby Thompson went across the first chicane. He was serving a slowdown, potentially, and he's been ploughed into the back of. And Bobby Thompson, who was doing very well in the pro section of the race, it was a tricky situation, that one there. And Bobby Thompson, as we see now, he had a bit of contact, which sent him across the grass in the first place. So Bobby's had the contact. He's had to take the iRacing and slow down, and it's sort of rabbit in the headlights a little bit. It looks like he wasn't sure where to go to serve the slowdown, and he was much slower than the cars around him, and they've gone into the back of him. But it looks like, Andy, that Jason Cooper is now taking the lead. So Cooper has overtaken Kieran Harrison for the lead, and they're going down towards the Parabolica for what will be the final time with just over 10 seconds on the clock.
Yes, so this race has crept up on us here, and it's once again 3 cars for the lead. But look at Nicole Foggy, he's almost caught them. If this lap was race was one lap longer, he might have had a shot at the win. He might yet, though, because here comes Harrison round the outside of Cooper. Turnbull is there as well. It'll be another 3-way drag race to the start-finish line, but they're absolutely side by side, with Kieran Harrison trying his best to get the championship lead back here. Goes around the outside of Jason Cooper. They're dead level at the line, and Harrison gets it by 5/100ths of a second. That is incredible stuff around the outside at the last corner of the last lap. Phenomenal driving, and Cooper did well to leave him room as well. Cooper ends up with second, Turnbull third, and Nicole Foggy, despite his earlier dramas, is only 1.3 seconds off the victory in the end. Jack Sedgwick is fifth, David Baker sixth, Maxime Ramstein seventh, then Josh Malin, Johnny Brandon and Jack McIntyre to round out the top 10. Dan Harper gained 14 positions. He is the biggest mover of the race to get 11th place in the end. Lewis Goodway in 12th, then Michael Epps, Ashley Beard, Lee Horn and Ollie Peacock further back in 16th. The rest of them coming across the start-finish line now, but brilliant racing there. And Kieran Harrison, how vital might that move turn out to be? He was languishing down in 8th place in race 1, whilst Nicole Foggy took the victory. This time around, Harrison gets the win. Foggy is 4th. It's going to be very, very tight for the championship lead. It might just be that Foggy holds on by a point or two. That was a really, really valuable victory there for Kieran Harrison.
It's the same as what's happened last week, of course, with the Harrison winning a race and Foggy winning a race. But also, though, what we've got to remember is that Nicole Foggy may have a penalty hanging over him for his contact with Mark Fletcher. That's something that I'm sure being looked at after the race. On the road, though, Foggy finishing in 4th position. And it just shows, though, that depending on the opinion of the stewards, it could have a big change in what happens with our championship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that could prove that could come back to bite Nicole Foggy. So at the moment, this is a provisional result here, but it shouldn't affect the top 3. Harrison the winner, second, Turnbull third. Nicole Foggy gets that 4th place, but that's the place that could be questioned after the race. Jack Sedgwick, therefore, in 5th, could benefit from that. David Baker had a solid night, if unspectacular. He gets 6th place in race number 2 with Maxime Ramstein 7th. Josh Malin in 8th place gets the pro class victory with Johnny Brandon in 9th and Jack McIntyre in 10th. Then it's Dan Harper, up 14 places to finish in 11th, with Lewis Goodway in 12th, Michael Epps 13th, and Ashley Beard 14th, whilst Lee Horn comes home in 15th. Then it was Ollie Peacock and Mark Fletcher, Freddie Hewitt and Jamie Dorey, and Tom Onslow Cole recovered to 20th place despite that spin coming out of the Parabolica. Then it's Ollie Wayne, Chris Slater, Dave Newsham, Max Coates, Knox and Lane O'Connor. 26 cars were still running at the flag. We lost Bobby Thompson, Seb Perez, Marlon Menden, Jan Ehrlichey, Ricky Collard, Ty Keveth and Michael Crease. So quite a few big name drivers there who have unfortunately not been able to get to the end of the race. And Harrison did get to the end of the race though, and he got to the end of the race slightly before anybody else did. He wins the race by 5/100ths of a second. We'll wait and hopefully have a chance to have a chat with our podium drivers very shortly. They're making their way up towards the commentary box now. And once they're here, and we will be able to have their thoughts after what was another tremendous race here at Monza. We kind of suspected that it was going to be very close and by far the closest racing, Dan, that we've seen so far this season.
Particularly in that first race, that 11-car train, and I think that's going to take some beating. But in both races, what we've seen is some very close racing, and it just shows that how much the Paramax Racing eSeries is coming along. We saw some drivers bumper to bumper, but they've been very respectful tonight. There's been very few incidents, and it's a fantastic way. An advert for the championship, the drivers and everyone involved. It's just fantastic to see that the drivers they're taking on board what the stewards are saying each week, and they are producing in some fantastic racing as a result.
Yeah, and a really close championship battle as well. There's nothing random about this. We're seeing similar drivers racing at the front week in, week out, so it's quite easy to keep track of who's scoring the points, but it's equally fascinating to see how one driver sees well in one race and then it swings back the other way again in race number 2. Brilliant stuff. Well, Ed May, I'm glad to say, has made it onto the podium this time. He's overcome a few technical issues tonight, so Ed, good to hear from you properly for the first time, and I believe you've got our race winner, Kieran Harrison.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, slight technical gremlins, but I'm here with Kieran Harrison. And Kieran, that was one heck of a race for you, going from third to win the race, and that amazing move around the outside of Parabolica at the end of the race was definitely something to watch.
Yeah, I'm really, really pleased to win that one, especially after getting spun in the first race and dropping towards the back of the top 10. I'm sat here in my room, so stressful. But fair play to Jason and Matthew as well, because especially Jason could have ran wide and pushed me a little bit wide in the last corner, but he was fair. And I think it produced some great racing.
Yeah, definitely. And also looking onwards to the championship, you came into this round of the championship leading just ahead of Nicole Foggy, who we saw in that fourth race encountering a little bit of issues and might yet be summoned to the stewards. So come and look at the championship fight for these coming rounds. What are your prospects for the championship? Do you think you can take this all the way?
I'm hoping to stay in it all the way. I'm not sure what the standards look like after this round. It might be close because he outperformed me here, and he was only a few points behind. But the end goal is to win the championship. Three race wins I think I've had now, so I've definitely got the pace most of the time to challenge. But again, it's a very, very competitive field, especially the likes of Foggy and Turnbull, Cooper, Sedgwick, etc. Very strong field. So, but you never know. I'll try my best.
Yeah, well, we'll wish you all the best. Thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth, and we'll let you get back to celebrate your amazing race victory.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed May. Well, we've also got our second and third place finishes, I believe, down there. Cooper led going into the final corner, Ed, but just wasn't quite able to hang on.
Yeah, Jason, that was a very, very tough fight we saw there between you and Kieran, and also Turnbull as well. That was incredibly, incredibly close. And from your race perspective, how was it coming from, obviously you started second and finished second. Were you hoping to maybe get that race victory, or were you more thinking of securing points?
The aim is always to get the win, but just short this time. But pretty happy with getting a solid result there. So close to the win, but second's still good.
Yeah, and if we look at the championship fight going into these next rounds, you're in 10th position. You're just ahead of the likes of Sedgwick and I know you're just behind the likes of Cedric actually, but you're not going to be quite in the championship fight. However, there are plenty of opportunities for cars in front to make mistakes. Are you going to be focusing on consistent good finishes, or are you going to be seeing if you can get more race victories come your way?
Yeah, I can get a couple more results like that and hopefully work my way back up a little bit.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. That was a hard-fought second place, just outside the winner's circle there, but still a very, very good job, Jason.
Okay.
And third place, Ed, was Matthew Turnbull, who had a grandstand view of the battling going on in front of him there into the final couple of corners.
Yeah, with Turnbull now. Turnbull was actually in one of the chasing packs, I think, for a good portion of the race when he encountered a little bit of issues. I think we saw Nicole Foggy encountering some difficulties as well, but managed to get back up onto that battling pack from 6th place and had a very, very good result, finish on the podium, Turnbull.
Yeah, it was a funny race yet again. Just tried to sit in the slipstream and try and get away a little bit, but then towards the end, I just wanted to create a bit of nuisance, to be honest, and hope that something happened in front. But no, it was a good race. Again with Jason and Kieran, it's always pretty clean. So yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, and I think you got a 4th place. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was a 4th place in the first race and 3rd place in this second race. So I think you've got a very, very good haul of points. I think you might be the driver who's bagged the most points out of this round. I'm not entirely sure of that, but that's definitely going to do your championship hopes the world of good. And coming into the next round, I think Alton Park it is. How are you going to be feeling coming into Alton?
Well, funnily enough, Alton is my local track in the real world, so I do know it quite well. But I think next week it's very tight at Alton Park, so it'll be a difficult one to overtake, and it'll be a bit of chaos again, I think, to be honest. But yeah, it should be good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much there, Matt. That was an exciting battle you gave us from start to finish in both race 1 and race 2. We'll let you get back to enjoying your podium now.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Well, thanks, Ed May, and apologies if I may have misnamed Ed at some point earlier on in the night. I definitely did mean Edward May, who is our pit lane and roving reporter, doing a good job as ever to catch all of the late-breaking stories from within the races. Speaking of keeping us up to date with breaking news, we can now head over, I think, and have a chat with our Tier 1 reporter, and Jack Oliphant has been busy again tonight streaming all of the Tier 1 racing action. And Jack, welcome to the comms box here. We've been looking forward to hearing what was going on in Tier 1, because championship-wise, coming into tonight, it couldn't have been any closer at the top. And if the racing we've seen with us here in the Premier Tier tonight is anything to go by, I'm sure you've had another really entertaining night of racing.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that taking up the Tier 1 commentary position has probably been bad for my voice, because I couldn't stop shouting in that one either. And I'm sure you guys couldn't either. Monza obviously offered up some fantastic racing, some late moves, and really it all happened on the last laps, as I'm sure it did with the Prem Tier as well. In terms of the championship, yeah, we had Daniel Kraft, who edged a bit of a lead for the first time that we've seen in the championship this season, and he's only extended it. It was a fantastic couple of races from him, managing a 2nd place and a race win in the 2nd race as well. So he also put it on pole in qualifying. So Kraft was clearly the man to beat, as we saw a load of nice battles, though. Bradley Burns making a particularly lovely move at just launching it over the 2nd curb at the 2nd chicane, tight right-hander before the Lesmos, and sending it from 3rd to 1st. Unfortunately, he couldn't keep it, but it was a fantastic move to see on the cameras especially. So yeah, we've had a really good night here. It's been thoroughly enjoyable. Can't wait for next week already.
I know, same. It's quickly becoming the highlight of my week, this, because the racing seems to be really competitive, not just in these top tiers, but all of the tiers down below as well. We hear reports coming in over a Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, and all the fantastic racing that's going on that maybe doesn't get such a high-profile billing as the Premier tier does, but Max Racing eSeries, regardless which tier you go and watch, Jack, is just crammed full of talent, and that's producing great racing week in, week out.
Yeah, indeed. I can't believe that anybody's tier is better than the tier I'm watching, but I'm sure you think that as well. And everybody else's tier is probably thinking exactly the same. If it's any more exciting than the stuff I've just watched, then you guys are in for a real treat, because it was an incredible battle to see. And I'm sure the tier 3 guys and the tier 4 guys have enjoyed their racing just as much.
We can let our viewers be the judge of that, because they can head over to your social media channels, can't they, if they want to catch up with all of the tier 1 action?
Yeah, so if you head over to my Facebook page, it's Jacko Racing 1 on Facebook. I'm sure the PMR guys will probably share it in the couple of days to come. But yeah, I'm certainly going to be coming over to watch your guys' perspective and your tier later on tonight. So yeah, because apparently it looked very exciting.
It certainly was, that's for sure. Well, thanks, Jack Oliphant, as ever, for keeping up to date with all of the action. Plenty of it seems there was in Tier 1. And we'll look forward to hearing from you again next week at Alton Park.
Thanks very much. Looking forward to it.
So are we. And of course, you can head over to the PowerMax social media pages as well for full updates on the individual race results from the various tiers, and also the updated championship points as and when they come through. Right, we're going to have a second attempt here at an interview we're trying to have a little bit earlier on in the night, because we've got someone waiting to have a chat with us in the outside the comms box. Hopefully you can hear us now. Michael Crease, star of the British Touring Car Championship, and now a star of the PowerMax Racing eSeries. Although, Michael, I think it's fair to say you had a slightly stressful night.
Yeah, to be honest, mate, it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
That's kind of saying something, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, it goes to show that even in motorsport, you need to spend a fair few quid on a sim to even get it right. I tried to scrimp and scrape and get one for about 700 quid, and yeah, it's not the best thing in the world.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it, as well, where practice really does make perfect, and we've seen this week probably the biggest improvement from some of the pro drivers that have been with us since the start of the season and not really troubling the top 20 at Donington Park, and now they're up there in the top 10. So I don't know, I think if you spend the next week or so, pounding around and getting some practice in, you can be up there, can't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that is true. I mean, I started off today was the first time I got on it, and I was in the 206s, and I come off doing low 203s, and I think the leaders were only 202s, 201, so we're getting there. But yeah, it's funny. Started off race one and a massive crash, and then because I don't quite understand it all, it's just yeah, like it was quite difficult. Like, got a bit of damage and stuff, and then the car was just slow in a straight line. And then I just didn't really understand it all, so I just got a bit more practice to go, I think.
I'm glad to see your enthusiasm for this sim racing is almost on a level with your enthusiasm for what you do in the real world, and so exciting times ahead as well. When we do go back to real racing, it's going to be a big year for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, signing for BTC Racing this year in the Honda FK8 is just a dream come true. I mean, last year Team Hard was a good stepping stone, and I learned how to juggle everything with the media and the fans and the actual racing itself up close and personal with a few of them. And but it just goes to show. I mean, last year we were 29th in media day out of 30, and this year we were P12, and I didn't put on a set of softs. So we're looking at top 10 in the Honda, and I've got Tom and Josh alongside me. And I should learn quite a bit off of them. And as long as I can hang on to them two, I think we'll be in for a real treat.
Well, really looking forward to seeing you out there. We're all looking forward to just going racing again, I think. But in the meantime, your legion of loyal fans, I'm sure, have tuned in tonight to see how you've got on. Will they be able to see you again, maybe a bit closer to the front of the field next week at Alton?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll be on it all week trying to not make myself look as bad as tonight. I was a bit unlucky tonight, to be fair. I was behind Ricky Collard in the second race, and then and then I got a black flag because I didn't realise you cut the corner, and if you don't come off you don't come off the gas too early, you get a penalty. So I just ended up sacking it off in the end.
Well, there you go. Well, that is one benefit of doing this in sim racing, I suppose. That's not necessarily an option when you're having a bad race in the BTCC, but hopefully,
I'd say touring cars are a lot easier than this. I'll be honest with you.
Well, in which case we have very high expectations when you do go back racing in your BTC and all in Honda. But thanks for joining us anyway, Creasy, and hopefully we'll hear from you again next week.
I'll see you at Alton. Yeah, no worries.
Looking forward to it. So Michael Crease, then we got there in the end. We finally managed to have a chat with one of the most popular drivers these days in the British Touring Car Championship. That is almost all we have time for, but it's time for our traditional end-of-night chat, I think, with Si McNally from PowerMax Racing, who has been watching all of the action, and action really was the word. We always knew, Si, that tonight's 2 races were going to be close, the slipstream was going to play a massive part in the racing, and the close finishes that we've had tonight really do sort of prove just how competitive a championship this is.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Even I didn't realise how close that was going to be. Although, having said that, I think my internet, living in the middle of nowhere, my internet has been absolutely terrible tonight. So I've seen them in what I think was something like 16-bit off a Mega Drive. It was about the detail I was getting. But yeah, it was fantastic. As always, I think as the season goes on, it's obvious that it's getting closer and closer and more competitive, which is what we wanted. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got this nice championship battle at the front of the field too. And this is the kind of part of the season that I really enjoy now, because we've had the initial, those first 3 or 4 rounds are done now. We're into the meaty part of the championship now. This is where championships get won and lost. And you've seen it yourself, I'm sure, in your involvement with motorsport over the years. You can have a really good start to the season, and it's that one non-finish you have, or that one penalty, or that one bad qualifier you have midway through the season. You then spend the rest of the year desperately trying to backtrack and gain those points back.
Oh yeah, massively. I mean, one bad result or one good result can completely change your entire season. I think Creasy talking about how this is even harder than touring cars says everything, really. I mean, the level of competition out there is absolutely ridiculous, and with it's starting to become obvious that there's a couple of people at the front that are perhaps edging out a bit of a lead, but as you said earlier on, we're starting to see the pros eat further and further forward. So it's going to be really interesting to see, as each round goes on, just how much those guys are getting towards the front of the pack.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's going to be the story we keep following, I think, over the next few weeks. We've been enjoying the racing. The drivers are enjoying the racing, but it's also fair to say that the fans are enjoying it too, aren't they? There's been some great social media interaction right the way from Media Day all those weeks ago when the championship was first launched. And I know that you're very much involved in all of that. It must be really rewarding for you to see that people are enjoying this as much as we are and coming back week on week to support a brand new championship.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we're seeing the crowd sort of grow every week. It's great. The feedback we're getting is pretty universally positive. And the fact that possibly the happiest man in motorsport, Michael Crease back then, the fact that he drives in the BTCC, he wanted to drive in this, and he's excited about doing it. It's really positive. It's really good in what is a really negative time for motorsport. That the sponsors are getting involved in it, the fans are really positive about it, and as we're starting to come through and starting to see some dates for real racing now, I think it's getting even more exciting. It's good. It's all very positive.
It really is, and we're about to get even more positive because next week we go to the greatest racetrack in the world, Alton Park. I may be a biased northerner when I say that, but it really is a fabulous track, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my favourite track actually. It's my favourite UK track. It's brilliant, and I think it should provide some interesting racing as well.
Yeah, overtaking is tricky, so qualifying will be important, but it's one of those that the drivers really enjoy, and it's a really scenic circuit as well, even in virtual reality on iRacing.
Yeah, I mean, Cascades could be interesting. It's going to be interesting watching everyone come through Old Hall and down through there as probably 3 wide. And yeah, I mean, we've seen some interesting battles. I mean, there's some great battles tonight, and it's going to be really good to see those back on home soil, I think.
I have to commend your optimism that they'll get as far as Cascades before the battle starts to get, in your words, interesting.
I have to be positive about it.
It's going to be fun anyway, isn't it? And I'm sure that you'll be back with us again to enjoy all the action in a week's time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sat here in the office, which is absolutely roasting. I'm sweating, but I couldn't drag myself away from it.
You and me both. It's been an intense night of racing, but that is what we wanted to see from the PowerMax Racing eSeries. So thank you, Si, and everyone at PowerMax and at Next Gen Racing as well for all of the hard work you've all done in putting it all together. So we'll hear from Si again next week, and we'll be back with more great racing from Alton Park. Dan Blake, I'm sure, will be back alongside me in the comms box as well. I need to get new teeth, I think, before next Wednesday evening, Dan. I'm sure you've enjoyed the racing tonight as well. Was it everything you kind of expected Monza to be?
It provided more than I expected, actually. That was some intense racing that we saw in that first race particularly, and as you say about the championship battle, it's almost sort of like a boxing match. They sort of size each other's up, and they've had the sort of bouncing around the ring, and as we get towards the second part of the season now, this is when they're going to start throwing their jabs, and I'm really looking forward to watching them unleash. And it's just, as I say, Alton Park next week is going to be a very interesting meeting. Obviously, it's quite a tight circuit. Overtaking will be at a premium, I think, at Alton Park, and it's one of those circuits where you may sort of there's the hairpin. There's going to be nickel broke. There's many opportunities on Alton Park where things can go very, very wrong.
Yes, indeed, but we'll all be tuning in definitely to watch the action, because plenty of it there will be next Wednesday, same time again, 10 to 8 p.m. UK time for the 9th and 10th races of the season. We will reach officially the halfway point of the championship, and you will not want to miss it. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thanks to Ed May, that's Ed May, our roving reporter, Dan Blake, my co-commentator, and all of the people that we've had popping into the comms box to have a chat with us tonight. Thanks to everyone for tuning in as well, and I hope you're enjoying the coverage. Thanks to Graham Stessford, everyone at Year One Racing TV for all of their work behind the scenes, and also to the official partners of the championship, Next Gen Racing, Year One TV, the Virtual Racing Association, and the XVR Sim Racing team. This has been the Powermax Racing eSeries from Monza. Sure to join us next week when the middle part of the season really starts to kick into high gear. Rounds 9 and 10 from Alton Park. Week's time.